All right, so picture this. You're on your way home from work, you hop off the train, and right there in the station, you swing by and pick up some personalized medicine that was like made just for you while you were on the train. I mean, is that the future of healthcare? Could we see like apothecaries built right into our transportation hubs? It sounds pretty wild, right?
Nice.
But this is exactly the kind of thing that that Ilyana Volkov is exploring, this speculative designer, in their project called the Belarusian Apothecary.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so this project kind of imagines, a future where bioreactors are integrated into, get this, HyperRail stations.
Okay.
Have you heard of HyperRail?
I have not, no.
So HyperRail is this like conceptual high-speed transportation network, and it's supposed to like totally revolutionize the way we travel, but I mean, it's still just a concept for now.
Okay.
But in Volkov's vision, these stations would also house like bioreactors.
Interesting.
Those high-tech fermentation tanks, basically. And they would be used to create like custom medications on demand based on passenger data.
Wow. So they would be like churning out personalized medicine right there in the station.
Yeah.
That's pretty mind-blowing. I mean, I can definitely see the appeal,
Right.
like no more waiting weeks for prescriptions, no more one-size-fits-all drugs. It might not even work for you. It could really streamline healthcare and make it way more accessible and effective.
Yeah, totally. But I do have to admit, the thought of like my data being used to create my medication on the fly, no, it's a little unnerving.
Yeah, I get that. There are definitely some big ethical questions that come up when you start talking about algorithmic control and data privacy and healthcare.
Right, like who's actually making decisions about my health?
Okay.
Is it me or is it some algorithm?
Yeah.
And then there's the whole issue of like, who has access to all that personal data?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are concerns that Volkov actually acknowledges and tries to address in their project. Like, one of the things I found really interesting was how they incorporated these traditional Belarusian folk practices into the design.
Oh yeah, tell me about that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. So in this future that they're envisioning, these really high-tech bioreactors are actually modeled after traditional Belarusian fermentation vessels.
Yeah.
So it's like this blend of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge technology, and I think it really speaks to this idea that even as we embrace the future, we don't have to completely abandon our past.
That's a really good point. And
Yeah.
it's like a reminder that progress doesn't always mean starting from scratch. Sometimes it's about finding ways to build on what we already know and have.
Yeah.
And I think it makes the whole concept a little less intimidating.
Yeah, I agree.
So tell me more about Ilyana Volkov. As a designer, what kind of work do they do?
Well, Volkov is a Belarusian designer, and they're really known for this kind of speculative design work, like, imagining possible futures. And they focus a lot on transportation and chemical innovation. And their design process is super interesting. It's very much rooted in research. And, they create these intricate digital models and simulations to test out their ideas.
So they're not just like throwing out wild ideas. They're actually thinking through how these things could function in a real world setting.
Exactly. And they're not afraid to tackle the complexities and the challenges, like the potential downsides of these advancements.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that Volkov is really engaged with these ideas on a deep level, and they're not shying away from the tough questions.
Absolutely.
And one thing I noticed was that sustainability seems to be like a major theme in their work,
Right.
especially in this project with the bioreactors and the focus on like on-demand medicine production.
Right, exactly. I mean, think about it. If you're only producing the exact amount of medicine that's needed at any given time, that cuts down on waste immensely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how we can use that technology to create a more sustainable and equitable future.
That's a really important point. So it seems like Volkov's work is really pushing us to think about these like big complex questions, like what does it mean to live in a world where our healthcare is so intertwined with our daily commutes and our personal data?
Yeah.
And who ultimately benefits from these advancements? And what are the potential risks?
Exactly.
It's a lot to consider. But I think it's crucial that we have these conversations now, before these technologies become so widespread that we don't have a choice but to adapt.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into Ilyana Volkov's The Belarusian Apothecary. But I hope this has given you, our listeners, some food for thought.
Yeah.
And maybe spark some conversations of your own. If you enjoyed this exploration of possible futures, we encourage you to share it with your friends, your family, anyone who might be interested in these kinds of topics.
Yeah, definitely spread the word.
And be sure to join us next time for another deep dive into the world of speculative design and the future that awaits us. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.